All right, today I'm going to be talking about Prisma, and I'm Caleb Briggs, and I am the owner of Tycoon Software. I have a shop right upstairs. We use the latest cutting-edge technology to provide our partner's vision and make it become a reality. But the majority of my time is my wife and kids. I got a 3-year-old girl and an 8-month-year-old girl. But also, when I have time, other than that, I like to grill out, hunt, fish, golf, drones, RC cars, games, travel, besides programming, of course. Who in here has used Prisma? Oh, good. Who in here has used GraphQL? A couple. Awesome. So, just a little segue into that. So I'm sure if you've used GraphQL, you've seen something like this. Pump up the font. Awesome, thank you. So this is the GraphQL playground, and it has docs and schema that you can look through. But if you were guessing, if you were looking through here, so here's all the queries you can run. This is just normal GraphQL, and then all your mutations are down here. So I have a simple blog schema sitting here. So we've got user who have post, and posts have comments. So kind of a 3-level deep, sort of. But if you're setting this up by hand in GraphQL, how long would you think that would probably take you? I mean, simple blog post, maybe a day, maybe 4 hours, something like that. Well, Prisma is a ORM, essentially, as a service. So it has a Docker container, it's open source, you can spin it up locally, attach it to a database, either MySQL, Mongo, or Postgres. Those are the 3 right now, but you're going to be able to attach it to DynamoDB and a handful of others very soon. They're always developing it. So here's all the types it generates as well. So I'm just going to scroll through these. I'm not going to go into each one, but there's a bunch. Here's like a query for comments. So just ands, ors, and then nest on top of itself. You know, where ID's in, less than, greater than, equal to, contains, all the fun stuff when you're querying for data. And all we have written is this. This, when I blow it up, is GraphQL SDL, which is Structured Dynamic Language. So we have a user whose properties, we have 2 properties on him, ID and email. They have post, which is defined right here. A post has ID and a title and whether it's published or not. And then author, so it's linked back to the user by post to user, and that's what we're going to call that table in the database. It also has comments, and then comments are defined right here. So this 20 lines of code generates everything that you see right here. All these queries, which if we go into query, you can actually see, you can go all the way deep. So we're going to run that query real quick. Oops, if I can get this off of here. Come on. Get off. Dang it. There we go. We'll use this one. No, I want to use users. Where is my scheme? Why isn't it off? There we go. Okay. So you can see I've got 3 levels deep. It's one query, brings up all your data, properly formatted as you would expect. So what can I do with Prisma? Let's get back to the. So like I said, all this that I'm covering today is on Prisma.io, and they have really good docs that I've found. So if you're new to it and you want to play around with it, by all means go there. Prisma.io. So on top of being a GraphQL API, you can also, that schema I just showed you, you just do Prisma deploy, and it generates that schema on the database that you're talking to. So on top of that, you can also deploy different environments. So let's say you have dev, test, and QA. Well, you change your URL, which let me just show you where that's at. In this Prisma.yaml. So right here is the service. Here's the name of the service, and then here's your environment. So if I put test, I could deploy a whole new database talking to a different set of data right here. And you can have an environment variable based on the Docker environment or environment, whatever environment you're in on the server. And it would look at that and determine which table am I talking to. Or not table, database I'm talking to. So that this generates a JavaScript client and a GraphQL schema. So if I do Prisma generate, it'll generate these two structures, which the client I can use. I'll show you when we demo it here pretty soon. And then the schema is just all that schema that you've seen on the GraphQL playground is just right here in GraphQL form. So I won't go into that. Okay. So SDL schema, we just went over that. Prisma deploy, that generates the schema you just defined and deploys it to the database in the Prisma YAML. So each environment we'll do Prisma deploy on, and we'll have the same database schema set up. It also gets all those types that we just went through. It does that by default, and it's very, very robust. And then added benefit, nested queries is just one query, and it does all the N+1 work for you. So let's do, now how can I use this? So I have a very simple test here written. So I have a couple of queries. One, prisma.graphql. So I can just take that query that I wrote in the GraphQL playground and plumb it in, and I'll get my data back that I just showed you. But it also has built in, if you just want one level, prisma.users. And then all that type infrastructure, let me just show you. If you're using VS Code, we can do, or ID, and then here they all are. So ID contains, it's looking at that generated file, and it's bringing back all the types. So you don't have to know it and go back and forth. It's just all right here in your, so that makes it really nice. So we're just gonna go ahead and run that real quick. So I'm gonna do node test. So it's going to bring back two queries. One is the nested, which is, oh, let me pump that up a little bit. Oh, too much. There we go. And then that's just the, whoops, I'm going to go down to the bottom. That's just the where test, where it starts with test at on the email of the user. So that's the second query. This is the first query that brings back everything that I have currently. Okay. So I could query post, and we'll just kind of show you the Prisma. You can bring one post back, all the posts, and then you have that query notation. Now, these connections, they're when you're doing paging. And let me go back to here and show you what you can bring back. You can say, does it have, when I take the first 5, does it have a next page? What index am I at, and what's the end index? And then the edges is all the information about the user I'm bringing back. And again, this is just bringing back that nested GraphQL query inside the node. And I can also get the count all in one query. So I've already generated that. We've got 3 users and then we don't have a next page because there's only 3. So if I did go one by one, there would be a next page, and then start cursor and end cursor. And one other thing I'd like to go into is subscriptions. So if you've used GraphQL, there was previously a beta subscription model. Well, Prisma has that worked out. So I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to an update on a user. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. All right. Let me see if I refresh this. Oh, it's listening. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and update this user. And there it is right there. 1 second ago, that user was updated. And then you have created and then deleted in here as well. But you can also query on the node as well. So if I only want user where ID is this, I would go ahead and put that in here. So where ID where updated fields contains of course. What? Maybe I grabbed the wrong one. That's what I wanted, node. Okay, so it's listening. We're going to update that user, and it should post right here, and it did. So if I take that out of there and stop it, this won't pop over here. So that's the subscription model. And so what's the next step? So Prisma you shouldn't directly use from the client. You should wrap it. And you can wrap it with Graphql-yoga. That's what I would suggest. And that has a built-in deploy to Lambda function. So you just test everything on your local host, and then you can deploy it to Lambda. And build your own GraphQL service on top of Prisma, which you can use Graphql-yoga, or you can do it by hand, kind of like we were showing right there. You can build a REST endpoint on top of Prisma. Just use the GraphQL queries on the back and return that to your REST endpoint. And then you can get your schema generated to your database by doing Prisma deploy to all your environments. So, questions?
Yeah, I've got one. So it seems like it's super nice, and it seems like it's the type of thing that would be like sunshine and rainbows until you want to do something that it doesn't support. Have you run
Yes.
into that?
Yes. So drawbacks. Oh yeah. Sorry. Basically, the question was, what are the drawbacks of Prisma? So right now, if you want to do any kind of aggregation other than the count, it doesn't have a function already generated for you. So the latest model they did to fix that, if they give you a raw query and tell you, okay, this is dangerous because you're actually querying the database, handle your own SQL injection and be very careful about how you're bringing your data back. So there's a drawback there. That's the biggest one. Other than CRUD operations, it was really designed to be an ORM with some other bells and whistles like subscriptions, and it's really good with that. But if you're thinking it's going to replace everything you can possibly think of, no. But the nice thing is it does have that raw query capability, and it's in preview, so you actually have to go to the Docker container, and I'll show you right here. Here's a Docker Compose if you wanted to run it locally. So right here, you'd have to turn raw queries to true on the Docker container, which is just an environment variable on the Docker container. But it's real easy to get started with, and they give you this Docker Compose file if you want to run it locally, pointing to your, well, they actually give you a way to point it to your local database because it gives you one right here. You don't have to use this. This could point to your hosted database if you wanted to. Any other questions? All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.